So, welcome everyone to 2Qs with Lisa Ward. I am your host, and today our guest is Miss Kaitlin. So, Kaitlin, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm Kaitlin Aguilar. I'm from the DFW area in Texas, along with Lisa. I've really been a creative person my whole life. I attended TCU and I actually studied graphic design. And in 2014, I started my own design studio. It's called Tenfold Creative Co. And I'm actually celebrating my 10th anniversary this month. Yeah,
Congratulations.
thanks. So I specialize in graphic design, marketing, social media. I work mostly with nonprofits and small businesses. Everything from logo design to digital marketing, billboards, event promotions. I have a hand in a little bit of all of it. I also specialize in Squarespace websites. I was lucky enough to go to their conference this year in New York. That was awesome. But yeah,
Nice.
that's what I do. It's my passion. I love what I do. I love learning about different industries and meeting new people along the way.
Awesome, awesome. Well, congrats again on 10 years. That's
Oh, it's crazy.
for small business, it feels like forever,
Yes,
but
definitely.
you
And it's
made
changed a
it.
lot.
Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. So I ask everyone the same two questions, and your first one is, what do you want that you don't already have?
Yeah, so I am currently a one-woman show, and I think with that comes some unique challenges. But what I want that I don't already have is a bit more support behind the scenes. Like I said, I work by myself. I have a couple freelancers, but being by myself in this business does mean that I get to focus on the creative work that I love, but it also means wearing a lot of hats, like handling administrative tasks, scheduling things that I would classify as busy work, really. And if I could offload some of those tasks, I feel like it would free up more time for like the big picture creative strategy things that I like, because that's where really I thrive and I feel like I bring the most value to my clients. So I guess what I'm saying is I need a more streamlined way to manage some of those administrative and repetitive tasks that come along with running a business. Because I love working on creative strategy, but like the behind the scenes work just eats up valuable time, in my opinion. And I also seem to enjoy the process of my work a lot more when I can just focus on the big picture and the overall creativity, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah, instead of having to get distracted by, oh, I need to send this invoice or I need to send this
Yeah.
email reminder. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it's those little things that end up making me feel like rushed, where I can't like fully explore like a creative project. When I don't have those tasks in the way, I feel like I can really dive deep into the creative process. Um, one of my favorite things to do in my work is to actually go to client events and see my work in action. Like I love the networking aspect of what I do. It's all not all behind a computer, but being able to free up more time would allow more of that part that I enjoy as well. I kind of see that as like the business development side of me that's sort of missing because I am tied up with some of the back end tasks.
Well, you've kind of answered some of the things that you want to outsource that. So what do you think's holding you back from, say, hiring a part-time person to completely outsource that?
Yeah, I think there's probably a few different things holding me back from achieving that goal. Like, I think first of all, it's about like finding the balance, like working smarter, not harder, right? So maybe there are AI assistants or other software things that can help me streamline the process. Like I feel like I'm constantly balancing like client work with the day-to-day tasks, so it's difficult to find the time to actually step back and assess like what the systems or tools are that I could put in place to like create more efficiency, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. So I'm like so focused on the client work, which is great. That's what I do. But it just means I don't have that time to step back and be like, how can I make this more efficient?
Yeah.
It seems like I'm just like playing catch up. And I think another factor actually would be like the upfront investment of like the time and the effort to implement the changes, right? So like if I'm exploring an AI tool, learning how to use them or teaching someone else to use them or adapting my workflow, I've had the same workflow and sort of tendencies for 10 years, right? Same like
Hmm.
project management, maybe it's time to take a step back and just reassess all of that. And I think sometimes that just takes an outside person looking in because I'm so, tunnel vision, like focused on what I've been doing for so long because it works for me. But the reality is, if you want to expand,
Yeah, if you want to scale, yeah. Somebody else has to do some of the tasks.
absolutely. And here's where my personality comes into play. It's hard to let go. Like when you're used to doing everything yourself, it can be hard to delegate to someone else or to trust a system to handle tasks the same way that you would. And I feel like so many entrepreneurs have this problem. They're like, well, do I want to hire someone? I don't know. Will they be able to do it like I do it? Like when your business is your baby, it's like the process of letting go, I think is hard, but
Hmm.
probably necessary a lot of the time?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, uh we've discussed this several times on here. It's the difference between working on the business versus working in the business.
Good, yeah.
And if you know what your hourly rate is, like, okay, I'm more efficient or more effective working on the big picture things. Can I, of course, I'm going to think about the math related
Yeah.
perspective of things. Okay, how can I outsource this to somebody who is nowhere near as expensive on an hourly rate as you are to get some of these, mediocre tasks done and more and just write it off. It's a business expense. We can afford that. But yes, it's having the systems in place so that you can delegate that effectively so that you're not having to go back through and do it all over again. And then you're frustrated. It's like, I could have just done
Yeah.
it myself.
And that's something I've run into before is just the time of like training someone else. And you're like, is this worth this like time investment? I've had like a couple interns over
I was going to
over
ask, have you had any part-time people before?
yeah, like I've had a couple freelancers and a couple interns and I loved having interns, but it's like sometimes shadowing isn't really shadowing, it's training. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is taking up time, and
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, I like pouring into other people, but yeah, that you do get that question or like where you're having to analyze, is this taking up too much time? Is this worth it? Am I gonna be able to offload stuff in the future? Like that kind of thing. And I think that's why I kind of brought up like some software, like AI tools or something because they're supposed to be easy and streamlined and user friendly and all that. So I think right now I'm doing what I can to sort of like bridge the gap, maybe not be able to like pay for like hired help yet in terms of time and money, but maybe there's an in-between process where it's like leveraging tools and automating where possible,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just learning from other entrepreneurs about how they've streamlined some of their administrative tasks.
Yeah.
Um,
What software do you use now?
so I use a project management platform called Flow, and it's really just tasks on a calendar, clear them off, have deadlines, that kind of thing. And I have clients that use all different things, Trello, Monday, Slack. I mean, there's so many tools out there. And, everybody's sort of looking for that one tool that does it all, right? And when you do
Mm-hmm.
project management, invoicing, tax, like all the things in one. And I feel like it's hard to find like the one thing that does exactly what you need. So you end up like utilizing like three, four different tools. But
Oh, absolutely. Our
yeah,
tech stack is insane. And we go on webinars and stuff. It's like, oh, tell me about your tech stack. Why do you like this software? Okay, cool. That doesn't work for me, but totally see how that works for you.
Yeah. And it's funny, like you'll see some companies or some software where they see a gap. They're like, maybe we should integrate this, but they don't do it as well as someone else.
Hmm.
They're great at their core competency, like what they built their platform for. Then they start adding on all these extra features, but the extra features seem to be limited. At least that's been my experience where you're trying to use like one place for all the things that you need.
Hmm.
But yeah, I try to keep it simple. I just use Flow for my project management, and then I have software called Invoicely that tracks all my invoices and runs reports, and they are the most simple platforms ever, and that's why I like them because I think the second you start like gumming it up and adding all these things, it's like no, I can't. And maybe the reason I can't is because I'm having to use like five other things for clients, you know?
Yeah,
Well, like I've seen them all, and I'm just like, I don't know. Just I'll just stick to my simple like calendar planning deadline. But hey, maybe that's my issue. Maybe I need to like open my mind in that way. But yeah,
possibly. I mean, what do you
yeah.
think? Let's do a case study. Like what tasks do you think you could outsource if you outsourced
Yeah,
anything?
yeah, for sure. I think like the invoicing part of it, the billing.
Hmm.
Um, I think I'm pretty good at like tracking expenses because, I'll just have my business accounts and everything stays in the business accounts and that kind of, works itself out. But the invoicing and like the communication with the clients on the invoicing, it's not a super automated process. That's one of the things. I think another thing is just within my work, within my industry, where I do marketing and social media as well. Okay, my strength is the creative strategy and the design, like the design at its core, right?
Hmm.
And then implementing that, posting it on social media or updating it on the website, that isn't a super high skill level, right? And so for me, it's like the that seems a little more like busy work. Where I'm just like
Hmm.
posting the things out or updating the WordPress site or whatever it is. So some stuff like that, where it might take a helper that knows those systems, but isn't an expert. You don't need to be an expert. Something like that. And I haven't quite figured that out. And I've even thought about just kind of dialing back some of my services in a way of saying like I'll do the creation and the design, but we need an administrative support to publish it or schedule it or
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, that could be a different contract of where you work with the internal person potentially that works for your client,
Hmm.
and partner with them and have the content potentially already created. Now they get to implement it.
Yeah, that
Or
makes
vice versa. You have your internal and they do all of that for you.
right.
So interesting. Okay.
Hmm.
That still
And
takes
I
a
think that's
person.
something, and I think that's something that people don't think about, like within my field, within like
Yeah.
graphic design or something. You know, actually think about what happens after you create this beautiful piece. Well, it's got to be published. So there's an email blast and there's a this and a that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's not an AI that can replace that necessarily. Um,
Maybe one day. Because I am seeing some of these platforms, I mentioned email blasts. Like, so I've worked within MailChimp and Constant Contact a lot. And I keep seeing them implementing more and more uh AI tools, or maybe even like I talked about Squarespace. Squarespace is great. Like if you post a blog, after you post your blog, a window will pop up and it says, "Do you want to turn this into an email?" And
oh,
it takes your blog and it turns it into an email blast and you can send it out to everybody. So we're
okay.
slowly getting there. Yeah, we're slowly getting there with that. So I think there's things out there, but I have a friend who's like a virtual assistant, and that's all she does is sort of the implementation of some of these
Yeah.
marketing campaigns. And I always thought that was like an interesting uh way of contracting yourself out as like a virtual assistant and just doing all those things. And so maybe it's like there's a tenfold virtual assistant or, something like that. And I think that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, as an additional service that you offer?
Like, yeah, someone that works for Tenfold to help implement things. Maybe it's an additional service, maybe it's built in. I guess it just depends on the client contract and what the client needs, but that's something else that's crossed my mind. And of course, I don't know what that would even look like, but that would be ideal as
Okay.
like a support.
Yeah. Well, because that would help take care of some of the other stuff that you want off your plate so you can do all of the big picture things.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Cool.
There's one other thing, and I bet you a lot of entrepreneurs understand this, but I was also thinking about how freeing up time would allow me to focus on actually promoting myself more effectively. I'd love to be able to spend more time updating my portfolio, showcasing my work, networking online to connect with like potential clients, but marketing yourself is such an essential part of running a business, but I feel like it's often the first thing that gets put on the back burner. Like if you're juggling so much for your clients come first. And the reality is that I know that there's just a lot of untapped potential work because
Hmm.
I just, I don't have the time to actually say, hey, here's what I've done.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to
It's
like clone
important.
yourself because we do need to know. Because I probably only know of, a few of the projects that you've worked on just because I've seen it online, but you probably have all sorts of cool things that I'm completely unaware of that you've worked on this year.
Exactly. Exactly the point. Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of goes back to where you started is how do you differentiate working on the business and developing yourself, marketing yourself, but then
Yeah.
actually doing the business and getting content and everything done prepared for
Yeah.
your clients.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give an example of where it actually pays off to invest in yourself. So last week, I actually carved out like an hour of time to make a 10-year anniversary celebration graphic with a whole write-up, thanking my clients over the years, like a little bit of a history. It was a whole thing. And, I invited people to comment and I posted that on like my personal social and then my business, LinkedIn, Instagram, Google, a few other places. Okay. I got like a lot of traction. I think I even got an email from LinkedIn today that was like, your highest impressions post was last week. It was like, whoa, she's active on LinkedIn now, guys. But like just so many people that I hadn't even heard from in a while just, commented or sent me an email congratulating me. And, I think even one client was like, huh, I haven't talked to you in a while. I've been thinking about doing this one project. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So it paid off. All right. I took an
Yeah.
hour and a little bit of thought and a little bit of care and thinking strategically like where could I put this and that kind of thing and it's paid off, right? But it's just a matter of being diligent and like carving out that business time, business focused time, promoting yourself time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's hard to do.
Yes.
Maybe if my back end processes were more streamlined.
Yeah, if you weren't doing the boring stuff, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you could do more of the fun stuff. Okay, so from um an entrepreneur, like we all get it. We're wearing way too many hats. At what point should we outsource and hire somebody like you? Like what does your typical clientele as a small business and obviously nonprofits, like what does that process look like to hire you?
Yeah, so it totally depends. I've worked with startup businesses that have started out with just a name and nothing else.
Oh
No logo,
wow.
no nothing. So we start from the ground up. Obviously, that takes a little bit more time, kind of picking clients' brains, looking around at inspiration, what represents me and my brand, what do I want my brand to say about me, kind of honing in on what that message is that you want to send, and then cultivating a brand identity, a logo, and then from the logo it kind of branches out from there, right? We've got to build you an online presence. Everybody's got to have a website. They got to be able to find you online, and then you can take it from there. I have some clients that have a website, already, but maybe it's gone stale or they feel like they need a little bit of a boost. And in that case, I offer like an audit where I run the search engine optimization score of your website, the mobile friendliness, how easy it is to use. Let's see if people are actually finding you. Maybe I look at your site map. Maybe you have like 40 pages and people are only looking at 4 pages. Okay, well let's cut that down. Let's clean it up. Let's make it easier to get to the core of what your message is that you're offering. And then I love doing event promotions and event design. So I said I work with a lot of nonprofits who will have like big fundraising events, and we get to come up with a theme for the event and how come up with a sponsorship package, offering businesses a way to get involved and support the event. So obviously everything has to look very clean, pretty, and get your mission across. And then everything from day of, what's on the tables, what do you see when you walk in, what is the story we're telling at this event so that we can raise as much money as possible or get as many volunteers as possible. That's super fun to get to do like events from start to finish. But I talked about a lot of the actual, physical materials and the in-person experience, but there's also all the marketing online that goes along with that. You need to tell your core group about this event. That could look like email blast, text blast, social media campaign, the whole package, right? And then since I work with nonprofits, we do a lot of mailings. There's a lot of
Mhm.
people that still like to donate through the mail, and they like to get those requests via mail. And it's a great way to be able to share like a success story, from your mission or something great that's happened, and give people lots of different ways to give. But obviously the past 10 years or so, a lot more nonprofits are implementing more digital campaign
Mhm.
strategies as well, trying to capture the younger audiences. But, it's funny because some people still prefer to donate through the mail, but some are like, I just want to scan a QR code and like give online or click a link in a text message.
Yeah.
But really learning how to capture like all the audiences that you want to capture and like how do you do that. But working with nonprofits is super cool. Getting to kind of work from the ground up with like new businesses is cool too, because it's like a blank, let's just start with a blank slate and like see what we come up with. But then I also like just kind of reinventing the wheel. Like if you have something that isn't working, okay, let's do some research, let's do an audit, let's, all those things that come along with that, and come up with something fresh and new, and then just kind of seeing people implement that and find success through that it is pretty cool too. So I do a lot of different things. I think I said in the beginning, I like learning about different industries, so I try not to like stick with one particular
Hmm.
industry because I love learning about it all and meeting new people. And it's funny because at least in the DFW area, but like a lot of people, it's just kind of a small world. Like especially within the nonprofit world,
Oh, yeah.
like everybody knows each other, right? And so I say that I need to market myself online, but I have a lot of referral business. um, I feel like that's kind of common with like a one woman like show like me, is that it's a lot of word of mouth and referral. But when you do invest the time of like marketing yourself online, at least in my opinion that I've seen, I've gotten some out of it. I think a couple years ago I actually did some Google ads. And I'm still like years later after I stopped running those campaigns getting people that are like, "Oh, I just found you on Google. I just put graphic designer near me." I'm like, all right.
Wow.
8 million
Okay.
people for Metroplex. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so if we're, trying to, enhance our marketing, what are some tips or tricks or what's like the tipping point of, no, I need to hire somebody to do this? Like what are your as
Yeah.
words? What's your advice on all of that for this next year?
I think a lot of us entrepreneurs like to DIY and figure things out. I mean, I learned how to do a lot of things on my own, but I think if you're getting to the point where you want to actually spend money on advertising, whether it be on Google or Facebook or in print ads or an investment in a new website, you should probably work with an expert. You want to get the most bang for your buck. And a lot of times we can tell you like we as in people that work in the industry, we can tell you like what's a good investment in this space and what isn't. I've mentioned Squarespace now 3 times, but it's just
Hmm.
so affordable for entrepreneurs. Instead of paying thousands of dollars for a WordPress site, it's affordable, easy to use, and I like to kind of equip my clients with the skills they need to be able to go in when I'm finished, go in and make their own updates. Not everybody
Okay.
likes that. Some people are like, you do it all
You
for
know,
me.
I don't want to touch it.
But there are other entrepreneurs which understandably want to know how to be able to change something on their own if they need to. And I think that's totally fair. And I've
Hmm.
talked to so many clients where they're like, yeah, every time I need a little change on my website, it costs me however
Yeah.
much. I don't know how to access it. And I don't know where the backups are. And I'm like, no, like this is your business. Like you still hold the keys. Like let me give you the tools you need to feel more confident in it. But I'd say if you're in a place where you'd spend money on advertising, then go for it, and then figure out what it is. If you want like multi-pronged approach, maybe someone like me. If you feel like all you want to do is like Google AdWords, there are Google AdWords experts where that is all they do. So there's something to be said for that as well.
Hmm.
Um, but if you're like, oh, I made this logo on Canva and it's kind of it doesn't really speak to me or doesn't stand for me, then by all means, I'm here. I love working one-on-one with people and figuring out um how they want to convey, their message and have that like little personal touch on their logo because I mean I've used mine for 10 years everywhere, so I'm glad I invested time and money into it because it's something that you're going to use forever hopefully.
Hmm.
So that's what I would say in terms of like if you need to hire someone. And I'm you know every now and then I'll get on a call with someone, they'll just kind of pick my brain for a little bit and that helps them figure out if they need to or what to hire someone like me. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
We're all learning from each other through those conversations. So,
Yeah. Have you ever trained anybody that was like an internal marketing person for a client?
sort of. So, I've done like, hey, here's training on how to like edit your website for like people that are, internal.
Hmm.
I haven't like given someone like full like broad training. I think I've trained a couple people on how to use Canva because Canva is a great tool if you're like, I know a little bit but not enough to like whatever. So you would hire someone like me to make the templates on Canva for you,
Mm-hmm.
your branded templates, and then all you have to do is go in and change text or move things around. So I've done
Hmm.
trainings like that too. So
Okay.
I've done specific tools training. Oh, that okay, here's a fun one. A couple months ago, I actually did teach a man how to use InDesign, and it's just cute because he was putting together a book for his mom's like 95th birthday, and it was like their family history, and he wanted to be able to do it himself. And the number of pictures that this guy had like from the 1800s
Wow.
was absolutely mind-blowing. And so I was like, okay. So I we had like 3 or 4 different sessions and I taught him how to use InDesign so that he could make his mom a family history book. And that was a cool one. That was a first.
Yeah. How
But
random. That's great that he found you for this project.
I know, and I think he's one of the ones that Googled a graphic designer near me. He's like, "Can you teach me InDesign?" And then when he told me about the project, I was like, "Absolutely,
Yes.
yes. This is
Yes.
awesome."
How
I think it's
cute.
awesome that he wanted to do it himself and like
Yeah.
have that personal touch like for his mom. And then it was fun teaching someone that has never dabbled in any creative software ever. And he I remember by the last session I just sat there and watched him work and I was like, "You got this." It was
Wow.
great. Yeah.
How cool.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. Okay, so since you've been in business for 10 years, what has been your biggest like breakthrough moment? Um, doesn't have to be client focused or just like business structure. Like what's been like your biggest like, oh, okay, good thing I know that now. Like what was that for you?
Yeah, two things that come to mind. First would be always have a contract.
Ah,
I
mm-hmm,
learned I learned that early on. Always have something in writing, always have a contract before you start any kind of work.
mm-hmm,
Um, and I like to get, like, if it's a first time client, I like to get a half deposit up front, before work begins.
mm-hmm.
Or, bill for the first hour or something, depending on how you bill. So that's number one. And I had my own contract that a friend looked over that did intellectual. I learned that I need a lawyer. I needed a lawyer to look at it. She was a small business lawyer to look at it and put all the language in it,
Mm-hmm.
to protect me and the client. And so once I got that, then I had like peace of mind. I knew what late fees I could or couldn't charge in the state of Texas. I mean, all kinds of things that you don't even think
Okay,
about. So
good.
that was important. Number two, so I always say, like, people ask, how'd you get your start? How did you get going? How are you getting referrals? When maybe throughout your time in your business, but especially in the beginning when you're starting out and you're trying to build your portfolio or you're trying to build your clientele, be careful how you use the word no. So in the beginning,
Mm,
I would get requests. And I told myself, I'm building my portfolio. I'm not going to say no to a project. Obviously, I'm going to say no to a project if it's like unpaid or something. But it would be something where I'm like, oh, I've never designed a box before. Okay, I'll figure it out. Like, I'll go on YouTube and figure out how I need to do die lines and all that stuff. Don't say no. I even took on some volunteer work for like a leadership institute nearby, turned into paid work, turned into 3 or 4 referrals. You never know what it's going to turn into, even if it's just getting on a phone call and giving some advice for 30 minutes. You never know who they know or who they
mm-hmm.
can refer you to or when they're going to remember you. Obviously, right now, when you're real busy, sometimes you have to say no or you have to say maybe next month or something like that. But in the beginning, that was one of the key things is that I always said yes or I'll figure it out or I'll try. It was never no. And 9 times out of 10, it ended up great and it ended up in a referral to someone else
Okay,
that was something that I enjoy. So,
cool. Well, that's good.
yeah.
Occasionally that can be the flip side of things.
Oh, yeah.
It's I'm desperate. I need the business, so I'll take anything. And then later you're like, oh no, I probably should. I'm in over my
It's true.
head, or I don't know that this aligns with how I feel as a business owner. Should I have taken this project actually on?
It's very difficult to figure it out, but I think, eventually you'll figure it out. Like for me, it was like, I mean, even the example I just gave, like normally I wouldn't give lessons on InDesign, but the
Yeah.
project spoke to me and it felt like something that I would enjoy or something that I would learn from. And I also felt like this was a well-connected client that could potentially lead to more work, So you just kind of have to like gauge those things. You can't gauge those things unless you actually talk to someone,
Hmm.
right? Like if you get an email and it's like, "Oh, I need training on designing a book," and you're like, "I'm gonna delete that." Get on the phone for a little bit, see what it's about. You never know, right? And that's kind of been like my mantra. But then obviously if you're overloaded or something doesn't speak to you or it just seems like it wouldn't work, don't be afraid to say no.
Yeah, that's
But
okay.
yeah,
Or just
that's a good
not
point.
now. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
yeah.
Going back to the contract and the billing, did you always take half up front, or was that also a learning curve? Okay.
Curve. That was a learning curve and it's something that I added to my agreement and it was like have deposit due up front, like if applicable, right? Obviously, if it was like an hourly rate, then that wouldn't be applicable. I'm always trying to move more towards project-based pricing instead of like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. Hey, that's one of the
Hmm.
streamlined things. I'm not going to track for every 5 minutes. It takes
Yeah,
time to
no.
track it. I'm just going to move towards more project-based pricing. But yeah, that was another lesson learned. And really just along with the contract is just the transparency. Like, here's what you're paying for. This covers this many rounds of revisions. And then after that, we have to go to my hourly rate. I have to protect my time.
Hmm.
Just be, and people appreciate that too. When you're just upfront and transparent with them as far as like what's included, like exactly what is included, like an itemized estimate. And here's what's going to happen if we surpass this number of hours.
Hmm.
People tend to trust you a little bit more when you start off that way.
Hmm.
Instead of being like, oh, like after the fact, billing them extra hours or something, like always try to just communicate and especially about deadlines too. Like, hey, I'm a little bit overloaded right now. It might be like 3 weeks instead of 3 weeks later, them saying, where's my project?
Yeah. Expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you implemented the charging half up front, what did that process look like for you? How did you know that I need to start doing this? And how did it feel to implement it?
Um, I'm trying to remember like specifics, but I think early on there was a couple of projects where I just put in a lot more hours than it was originally expected, but I hadn't protected myself in terms of the pricing, and the client was just like, "Well, I'm just going to pay what you said it was going to be." But I didn't
Hmm.
have a contract or anything to the contrary. And then I've run into some stuff where like late fees, if something's like 30 days past due, then work's going to stop. I'm not going to just keep working and not being paid like that. That's a very layman's terms of it, but
Hmm.
that sort of thing. And so I think, like I said, I just learned the hard way, like where I just wasn't paid for some hours. And again, it was early on, so it hurt. I was like, okay, I gotta protect myself. Like, I have to do this. And even if someone seems like super trustworthy or they're a referral from someone else, I always say all first-time clients, you gotta sign the design agreement, and there's gotta be a half payment up front. Now, clients that I've had for 10 years, I don't really make them do that, but
Yeah. You know
it's a
where to
different,
find them.
yes.
Or you know they're good for it, so you're not worried about
Exactly.
that. Yeah. No,
Right.
that's got to be, and I think knowing what you're worth, like what to charge, is also a hard thing to decipher.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that, at least from the female's perspective, we undervalue ourselves tremendously.
Yeah.
It's knowing what is that hourly rate, knowing
Right.
what your contract needs to look like,
Right.
um, and then just being bold enough to say, yeah, no, this is what it's worth, and zip it
And then,
and let them decide.
and just because I'm a solopreneur doesn't mean you don't have to pay invoices on time. We
Oh, yeah.
I'm a vendor just like anybody else, right? And for me as a designer, I like to showcase my work in my portfolio. So that's in my contract too, that I'm allowed to have the business name and the work displayed in my portfolio. Now, I've had a couple of NDA clients where we've had to take that out, and that's totally fine. That's totally understandable. But for the most part, if I can have the right to display it, again, the transparency, having it in the agreement,
Hmm.
that way they can read over it, and if they're uncomfortable with it, we can talk about it type thing. But I think that, and then like the payment terms, and if it's a retainer, having the like 30-day, 60-day notice, whatever, makes you feel more comfortable. But that's really what it does for me is it makes me feel more comfortable. I get a lot of inquiries from Google. I've said that before. And so when they pay that half deposit and they sign the agreement, to me, it's like, okay, they're legitimate.
You're not a bot, you're a real person. Yeah. No,
Exactly. Yeah.
very cool. Well, any fun projects or other things that you're wanting to work on in this new year?
So many things. I'm doing a lot of new websites right now. So ever since I went to the Squarespace conference, I've been pushing that a lot because they really kind of equip us, the designers, with tools to get more business in that area, and it's great. And I'm just seeing a lot more people kind of move towards those user-friendly platforms as opposed to like you have to hire a programmer to build a custom website. So I'm seeing a lot of trends towards that. Um, in terms of like redesigning websites, just making it more user friendly. Because a lot of these small businesses and nonprofits, they want to be able to go in and edit themselves, so they need a platform where it's easy for them to do that. What other fun new projects? I'm trying to think. I'm doing some cool work with Texas CASA. So I do a lot of work with court-appointed special advocates in our area in DFW, and Texas CASA, they're in Austin, and they kind of equip all the county CASAs with the materials they need. I always get to do some pretty cool projects for them. And it's cool because I'll show up to like the Tarrant County office and they'll have like some of the materials that Texas CASA sent them. I'm like, "Oh, it's me." So it's nice to see that come through. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Probably a lot that I'm not thinking of. A lot of my nonprofit clients are already looking forward to their March and April big fundraisers, and so we're
Mhm.
coming up with new themes for that. And I got a couple clients celebrating anniversaries, big anniversaries, so we'll kind of do like special logos and branding for that. I think I'm gonna be redoing my website too.
Ah, okay. So we got to carve out some more time to work on your business.
Yes, speaking of carving out time.
Very
Yes,
cool. Very cool.
yes, for sure.
Okay, last question. Piece of advice that you have received over the years that was like, man, I wish I had known that when I started.
That's a really good question. Um, I Is this advice or is this a warning? Maybe both. So, my mom also owns her own business, and she's done that for a very long time. And she's had contractors, she's had employees, she's had bosses, she's had all of it. And I think number one, she taught me like trust yourself. Like you can do it. Like if, whatever it is, even if it's hard, like just trust yourself that you can get it done and trust your gut with things and trust your gut with people. And at the same time, I think like seeing her have employees and stuff, I'm also like, could I trust someone else to help me with my business?
Yeah.
It's going back to like one of my issues, but I think I've learned a lot of lessons just from like her and her business.
Hmm.
Um, And I think I wrote this down the other day. Where's that other piece of advice? Find the balance. Like try to find your balance, right? So like not only is that work smarter, not harder, but also find the balance within life. When you own your own business, it's like your baby, like it's you, Tenfold is me. I am Tenfold. Like I'm starting to sound like Star Wars or something, but um it can consume you. Like it's
Yeah.
you. It's you out there. It's your reputation on the line. But you kind of have to, at the same time, treat it like a job in the sense that when it's family time or when it's like self-care time, shut that down. And I had to learn that early on, especially when I was like working till midnight every night trying to grow my business. I never had a away from the business time. And now
Hmm.
I've gotten to where like I have to have it. Like I have to refresh my mind. Like I'll have some very design heavy days where I'm literally designing like 8 hours straight. And I'm like, you gotta step away, spend time with
Hmm.
family, go on a walk, do something. And you'll often find that that actually helps you be more productive and more creative when you come back. Because when you're staring at something for so long, it can kind of get stale on you and you're not noticing things that you normally would. So finding the balance, like both within your day and then within your weeks, like have your weekends, do what you need to do, like take time away because it'll just make you a better business owner instead of like constantly focusing tunnel vision on it. I find that when I do take a step back, I'm able to kind of just refresh, come back to the same project with a new set of eyes. Maybe I saw something cool over the weekend that gave me inspiration. Sometimes I dream about projects.
Oh
Like
boy. Yeah.
that's how stuck I am on something. I will literally dream about a solution to a problem in a project. And I'm
Hmm.
like, whoa, I gotta like go
Yeah.
take
My
a walk.
subconscious is working on overdrive.
That
Calm
yeah,
down.
that yeah, for sure. And then you just end up sabotaging yourself, you know? So I think finding that balance is important as an entrepreneur instead of it taking over your whole identity and your whole existence. Like, no, you have an identity outside of your business, believe it or not, and it's important that you do. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah.
And remembering that and um, giving yourself space to have that. Like, turn it
Mhm.
off.
It's hard,
Hi,
especially when your
guys.
phone's blowing up. Oh, I have one more.
Uh-huh.
To Squarespace again, that conference. One of them was like how to streamline, how to like find balance. And he was like, I will just put do not disturb on my phone, like when I'm honed in on a project. Otherwise, I will check every email and every text that pops up on that phone, and it will distract me from whatever I'm doing. And like, I
Mhm.
have that issue. Like, I'm pretty type A. Like, I don't like having unread emails
Oh, yeah.
and it'll
Notifications. Got to
distract
clear it.
me. And I thought that was great advice. You know, we have this feature on the iPhones now to like put focus or do not disturb, and only like the emergency things come through.
Hmm.
That's been helpful. So I'm not hearing the little ding ding whenever the email comes through or seeing my phone light up.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's
Well,
another.
I don't even have push notifications. There are very few things that I have push notifications
Well, that's
on
smart.
my
I should do
phone.
that. I have so many notifications.
Otherwise, because conferences, they did a study of two different people. They came in and they did a questionnaire. One person had their phone on the table but face down, and then one person with the phone like in another room. It didn't come in with them. Who do you think did better on the quiz? The person with the phone or the person without the phone?
Without the phone.
Yeah. Literally just its presence makes us dumber because we're distracted by it.
Yeah.
So I turned off all, it's like I better not be anybody's emergency contact, especially at night.
Yeah, and
My phone might not even be in my room with me.
this guy at conference, so he does that, and then he has Gmail, and there's like a feature on Gmail where you can have it tell you to follow up on something if it's been like 2 days. So he just has that on, and so he like tells everybody, "Hey, it's probably gonna be like a couple of days before I answer your email right now because we're in the busy season."
Yeah.
Like, I thought, well, okay, good luck with that. But at the same time, like, it's kind of smart
Yeah. So,
because so much time, again, busy work, answering emails, even if it
mhm.
doesn't have to do with the project, just answering emails, like
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody else can monitor that for you.
maybe.
Ish. Maybe. Maybe. We'll get there. You're already like, I'm breaking out in hives just thinking about
We'll
that.
get there.
Ah, too funny. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Caitlin, for coming on, and I hope you all join us for our next episode.
Thanks.